Welcome to Obsidian for TTRPGs. Let's learn how to do Dataview lookup tables. Alright, g'day guys, and welcome back tonight to another Obsidian video. Tonight we're going to be having another look at Dataview, but this time going a little bit deeper and having a look at lookup tables. Now, for anyone who is not aware, the ability to look something up in a table is incredibly powerful, and it's a pretty common thing among the data world. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, let's just jump over to Excel quickly and just give you an example. Alright, so here you can see that I've got a table in Excel. Alright, so it's a very simple table with a user ID, a first name and a last name. And over here I've basically got a field I can type in something, and you can see here that I've typed in ABC789 and it's returning Frank Apple. Okay, so these are return sections, this is my data, and this is where I'm entering my lookup value. So if I change this to ABC123, automatically I get John Smith returned. And basically what it's doing is it's saying, I want you to look this up in here. When you find it, I want you to return the information that's basically related to my lookup field, but not exactly that, right? It's basically the ability to say, I have this piece of information, I want you to go and find it. When you find it, return me something different. And it's very powerful in data world, so it's something that data analysts use on the regular basis to basically bring their data in. If anyone hasn't seen how to do this in Excel, I'll just run through that quickly because that can be quite handy. Outside of TTRPG world or whatever, you can use this at work. But a VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup. So equals VLOOKUP basically says I want to do a vertical lookup. Alright, and what that means is we're going to come through and go VLOOKUP, what are we looking up? Alright, and that's where we're looking up this field here. Alright, so we type that in. We'll type this again just so you can see it. Alright, what are we looking up? We're looking up that, comma, where are we looking it up? Alright, I'm going to highlight my table, or you can highlight the columns, it's up to you. I usually do columns because I usually work down the page. Alright, so we'll go full NP. Alright, when we find it, alright, so when we find ABC123, what do we want to do? Now, the important thing about a VLOOKUP in Excel is that it always uses the farmost left column as the field that it's going to look up. Alright, so it's going to look in N. And when it finds it in N, it's going to then return a result from somewhere further through based on what we select now. So if I find it in column N, I want to return the first name, so I'm going to return 2 because this is column 1, this is column 2. I want to return a 2, and then we'll do a 0, just to round it out, brackets, alright, and now that works. And you can see here that if I go through and do 4, 5, 6, that now changes. Alright. So that's a VLOOKUP, and that's a very handy piece of functionality in Excel. Like, you might get use out of that, in your career or whatever. I highly recommend people learn how to use that one. But conceptually, we want to do something similar in Obsidian. Okay, that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to go through this because I don't know if you guys remember my last video, or not my last video, but one of the videos that I did on travel distance. Alright, we had the ability to have our notes automatically calculating how many days travel it would take for us to basically get from the current town that we're in, being Shadowdale, over to Voonlar or over to Tibbleton Scar. And it's a really cool concept, right? Because then you can basically have your world map here. Alright, so if we are here, if we're in Shadowdale, you can see Voonlar, you can see Tibbleton. Alright, but you can just hover your mouse over and say, oh yeah, it's going to take 2.8 days travel to get to Voonlar, or it's going to take 5 days travel to get to Tibbleton Scar, and it's based on the distance. And the cool thing about Obsidian, of course, is that with the leaflet plugin, you can actually measure, alright, by holding Alt and clicking on your map. So that's another handy tip for you. But that's what we want to do. But if we go and have a look at the Shadowdale and have a look at the party configuration, you'll come in here and you'll see that we have these tables, and the concept of what we were doing is that you had this metadata at the top that you needed to basically fulfill, and it's all about this minutes per mile. Okay, so we come down here, we find out the type of travel that we were doing, and we figure out the speed we're doing, which gives us the minutes per mile, and we were basically coming in here and updating this to include that, and then that would automatically calculate everything for us. Now, when I was obviously doing this video, I basically reached out and I said to the community, like, does anyone know how to do this, right? Because I didn't know how to do a lookup table. I just want to say a huge thanks to Cyberfunker. He reached out via Discord, provided the code and the examples, the full working calculation to achieve what I needed with lookup tables. So I just want to make a huge thank you, Cyberfunker. That's been a massive, massive help. So that's what we're going to go through tonight, is those coding examples and show you how to basically do a lookup table. And conceptually what we're trying to do, just so you do understand in case it wasn't clear, is we're going to say we are riding a horse and we're going at normal speed and it should return 15 minutes per mile and automatically calculate our result from that. Alright, so let's jump in, let's have a look and see how we go. Alright, so we're coming over now to the Vault. My patrons will know what this is. The Vault is available to all of my patrons and it has coding examples that we're going to go through tonight. So if you're watching this video and you want access to these notes, like, you can just come along to my Patreon and you can grab it from there. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump in now and have a look. Now, we've got some code. I've got a bit of a sloppiness going on here, but I want to start by saying that in the previous version, this one here, we used Markdown tables, and you can see here that this is a Markdown table. It's quite neat and laid out, but obviously that's a Markdown table. That will not work. And that was the first thing I learned, is that you have to basically put your data into your Frontmatter. Okay, so if we come down here, we can see I've got a transportation note. The transportation note is effectively the methods of transportation that are available to my party. And we can see here that we've got the dash 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 that creates the Frontmatter. Alright, and the dash 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 at the end that ends the Frontmatter, so everything between there is Frontmatter. But then we're making a movement variable. Now, a movement variable in this case, you know, a variable has usually got, well, I think the ones we usually work with that you guys would have seen, we've got like one result. But you can do a thing called an array with coding, right, which basically means it's like a variable that contains multiple results or multiple values. That's what we're doing here. So we've basically, it could be a nested variable, for example, I don't know what you call it, but we've got movement is the variable name, and then we've got sub variables in there as well. So we've got walking, alright, is the sort of subheading for it, and then within that we've got name, base, slow, normal, and fast. So these values are all contained as part of walking, which is part of movement. And what we're going to be doing tonight is trying to figure out a way to say, alright, we are riding a donkey, we are going normal speed, so therefore 15 is the result we're looking for. That's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. And if we can do that, then basically we can use that to do the calculation that we want. So that should work out quite well. Alright, so we go through and we create our table. Now, I just want to call out here that, you know, creating a table by text, it's probably quite a painful process. Alright, so just to show you how I created that table, just so you get an understanding of it, I came in here and grabbed my my Markdown table and I copied that, okay, because I've already written it into Markdown. So just to show you guys that this is indeed possible, we're just going to grab a Google browser here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to type Markdown to Excel. I'm going to grab the first result, so tableconvert.com. Alright, it's got a Markdown to Excel tool, and we can paste our Markdown table in there, and you can see here it's already converted that to cells. So we can Control A and Control C, so select all and copy, and we can then take that over to Excel and we can paste that in just like that. Alright, so it's very, very easy to get Markdown back into an Excel format. Now once it's in Excel, that's when things get a little bit easier. Now I've already created this, so I'm just going to copy this for the sake of it, just so you guys can see it. What was that? Two columns over. Alright, so what I've done here, I'll grab this. Alright, what I've done here is I've basically looked at the syntax for this here. Alright, I grabbed one of these lines, and this was provided to me, alright, but this is the syntax for obviously creating one of these nested variables. And I've gone over to Excel, and I've copied that in here, just so I can see it, and then I'm starting to basically replicate that. I want to take all of this data and put it into this format, but I want all the values to obviously be different. Alright, so what we've done here is we bring in the walking. Alright, so walking is the first bit, and obviously we've got the name over here, so we can bring in donkey. The problem with the donkey is obviously it's got a capital D, so I want to change this to a lower. So I'm going to do an equals lower, and then put the C6 in the brackets, and that will change donkey to lower. Alright, for anyone who's new to Excel, you can also do an upper. Alright, I think it's proper. Yeah, proper. Helps if I type it properly. Actually, probably a better example if I move this onto donkey. Alright, because you can see proper puts it back into sentence structure. So just a heads up, lower, upper, and proper are a couple of the things you can use there. We're going to use lower because we want it in lowercase. Alright, and then here we can see this section, so we need a name. So what I've done here is I've literally typed these things out. So Alright, so I put a space in at the end of that, so I'm literally replicating the exact structure here. Actually, I don't think I needed that space. Alright, so we put it out there, that's the name section. Alright, here we want donkey, so I'll click on that cell, go equal that cell, and bring it in. Here we'll do base. Alright, here we want the base speed, which would be the total speed. Alright, here we want slow. We're going to grab the slow speed. Here we want normal. That's going to be the normal speed. Copy in the fast. Do an equal, bring in the dash. Alright. And then that basically gives us all the elements that we need to replicate this. Okay. We do need one more thing here. And that is an end bracket. Alright, so what do you do then? Alright, because you can see I've basically, what I've done is I've created pieces and chunks of data, right, that I'm going to put back together. So let's go here, we go equals, click the first cell, and second cell. Let's see if I get my fingers over this keyboard. Just keep going and selecting the next one. And then at the end, press enter. Alright, you can see that that's now created that. And if I copy that and then paste that next to here with text, alright, we can see, is it in the same format? Yes, it certainly looks like it is. Have we got any issues? Looks like we got spaces in the right spaces, spaces in the right places. Say that 5 times fast. Alright, then we got the end there as well. Alright, so that's fantastic. So we now have what we need. And all I would do here is I would highlight everything that I've done here and then drag it down using that square on the right hand side, and you can see that's now automatically updated to basically give you the syntax that you need, and I can now copy that over to my Obsidian note. Now this caught me off guard, so just a heads up on how this works. You can press obviously enter in here and paste it in, and you can see that there's a line between. So don't do that. It's using a Control-Z, a normal paste. What you want to do is hold Control-Shift-V, and that will actually bring it in a nice formatting way. But also notice here that, you know, if you look here, you can see there's a line and a lot of space. Now, to the average eye, that looks like a tab. Okay, and if you were to come in here and press tab, you'll see it will align. Notice when I press my keyboard to my left and right back, it goes from one point to another, right? So the cursor is jumping the entire section of tab. But if you come up here and you do it on one of these ones that is working, all right, you will see that there's spaces in use, not tabs. Okay, and if you come down here and we actually have a look at this, you'll see that there's some data view that's now failing. And that's because I'm using tabs, or I don't have the tabs in the right spaces. So tabs does not work, so just a heads up. So what we can do is put 1, 2, 3, 4. The line appears, and we're replicating the formatting that this requires. Now, just a heads up, you don't have to do it this way. Another really cool way to do things would be to go in here and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Paste that down here. And then in here we could actually include that cell in here, and you can see that now puts the spaces in front. And now you can copy that back to your note and we'll get rid of walking. Get rid of everything there and paste that in. Oops, sorry, Control-Shift-V. Stuff that up now, haven't I? Control-Shift-V puts it in, and you can see now. No, I didn't even copy that. Let's do that again. Alright, now it comes in with the spaces, so now it's actually working properly. Okay, so just a heads up, that's how you go about creating that. If you want to do it in a much quicker and more obviously efficient way. Alright, but it's very important that you do not use tab because it will not work. Alright, so what have we done here? We've just basically created a front matter with our table in it. That's effectively it, but it doesn't look like a table, so visually it's not very appealing. Alright, so what we have here is an actual table, but just note that I'm creating this. Oh, I didn't create it, but someone else did for me, but we've got the Dataview.js, alright, which basically creates us a table. So this is optional, this is not part of the lookup, alright, but just know that you can do it, and obviously we'll include that into the Patreon vault for anyone who wants access to this code. Just to run through it though, what it's doing is looking at the current page. It's defining a Markdown table, so you can see name, base, slow, normal, fast. These are our column headers, and you can change these. Then it does a new line. On the new line, it puts in the dashes that you need, obviously, at the top of a Markdown table. Alright, then we can come down here. It says Markdown heading can be written or outside the view. So some of this is just stuff that it needs. But down here is the important bit where it's saying, let's now create the table. You can see it's putting the pipes in and then basically bringing in the data. So in this case here, it's bringing in move1.name.base.slow.normal.fast. And you can see this is aligning here. So name, base, slow, normal, fast. And what that's doing is it's basically looping through each line of this table up here and then creating a table from it. Alright. So the code, as I said, will be in the vault for anyone who wants access to it. Alright, but here we can see obviously now we have a table. Alright, completely optional. All it does is let you read it in your note, and obviously that's a nice to have. Alright, but let's go down and have a look now. So we've got our data. Alright, now we need to start working with it. So here's some nice examples on how to use the lookup. So in this case here, the unicorn has a base speed of, okay, and what we're looking for is this note dot movement dot unicorn dot base. All right. So what this little bit of data view here is saying is, I want to look at this note. I want you to find movement, all right, which is here. I then want you to find unicorn, which is here, and then the base. So this should return the result of 50. Okay, so let's check that. What does it do? The unicorn has a base speed of 50. Fantastic, so that is working. Here's another example, this note, .movement, .unicorn, .normal. Alright, so you can see here it takes normal is 12 minutes, and if we come up to the unicorn, normal is 12. So we can see that's working. So that's one way to do it. Here's another way, basically, this note, .movement, searching for this. Alright, so we're searching for battle balloon, alright, and bringing in the base. And it's effectively like the same as this, right? It's not that much different. Alright, and you can see that brings in the results. And then if we come down here and have a look, the rhino in this case, this movement, this transportation.base. Now this is getting a bit more interesting because you see here we didn't actually define the unicorn or the battle balloon in here, right? Like the rhinoceros is not written here. So what is it doing? It's saying this note dot movement. I want to look in this note in the movement section, but I want to look for this value. So this note dot transportation. So what is that saying? It's saying look up here in the front matter of this note. All right, find the transportation variable. All right, whatever that is, I want to search for it. So rhinoceros. So down here it's saying this dot movement, find the rhinoceros, and then bring the base. All right, if we come through and have a look here, can we find the rhino? Yes, the base speed is 40. And if we come down here, you can see the base speed is 40, so we know that it's working. All right, so again, this movement, this transportation dot normal. Now this is where it's starting to get a lot cooler, right? Because all of a sudden we don't have hard coding in our notes. we can use that concept of a global configuration, all right, a note that has a variable in it that says, this is my party's method of transportation currently. All right, which means you have a single place to change this, and you can have your code copied into all of your location notes that says, go and reference this party configuration note, so you can figure out what type of transport that they've got. All right, and that's what we've done here. So if we have a look at the current party note, all right, we come in here and have a look, we'll see we've got transportation rhinoceros, the speed is fast, the exhaustion level is 0, and the hours per day is 8. All right, so they're traveling by rhino, they're moving at a fast pace, they don't have any exhaustion levels currently, and they're traveling for 8 hours a day. All right, and this is obviously D&D 5th edition I'm working with here, so standard is that you only travel for 8 hours, and if you want to push your horse or your transportation harder than that, then you need to roll and see if you get a level of exhaustion, and obviously the more exhausted you get, the worse it's going to become. So this is our current party configuration. All right, now this becomes super useful, because if we come down here, we can see this is the original code that I was working with. And there's a whole heap of examples in here, so just please to ignore some of these. I probably could get rid of a chunk of this before I put it on the vault for you guys. But if we come down here and have a look at calculate speed, this is the one that we actually want. Okay, and what is this doing? Well, it's a Dataview query. We're rounding the result. All right, so we don't want decimals in this. We want to round it up and use it quite nicely. We're doing the number of miles, all right, that we need to travel, keeping in mind that the number of miles was taken from back here in the map. Okay, so what I would usually do is I would come in here and I would go, all right, we're traveling from Tibbleton to Ashenvale. How far is that? 180 miles. All right, I'll round up. So in this case here, I've used 160. All right, we're timesing that by, and now we start to get into our lookups. So we're looking at the transportation note because that contains our method of transportation. We're looking for the movement value, all right, that we saw before. But we're going to look in the current party note, which is this note. We're going to look for the transportation variable, which is rhinoceros, all right, and then we're going to also look up the current party speed, all right, which is fast. Okay, so we're saying look in the transport node under movement for rhinoceros and then return the current speed. So if we come back and have a look here, alright, so we're going to come down here. Oh, actually, sorry, I probably need to go back. Speed is fast, so rhinoceros fast. Alright, we'll come back to here. We come down here, we find rhinoceros, we find fast. The result is 11. Okay, so what we should see if we come in here and test this, and I've got this line separated out here, is 11. Now, just so you guys understand what I've done here is I've just basically copied this sort of like isolated section of code down to here. Now, when you're working with like really large Dataview queries, it really is quite handy to sort of break your code out initially into segments of code so that you can just validate that the results are what you expect. And this is something you do in sort of data analytical work is, you isolate a section of your code, you check the result, you make sure it's calculating the way you expect, so it's in an isolated environment. Because as you can see, by the time we come up here, we then start timesing this by some other things. We've got some lookup tables going on, so it gets more complex. So if we break it out element by element, piecemeal it down into something that makes sense for us, that we can obviously hold, contain, look at and understand, we can say, all right, this calculation here should equal 11. Does it? Yes. Fantastic. That is working. And that's what I've done here as well. All right, so current party exhaustion level. All right, so equals the current party dot exhaustion level. That should equal 0. All right, that's returning 0. Fantastic. Hours per day. All right, so you can see I've got hours per day. Hours per day should equal 8. It equals 8. All right, and then the last one here is the speed. Oh, I think I just replicated that, just for the sake of it. Alright, so we probably don't need that. Alright, so that's the three sort of sections that go into all of my calculation. There are some other things going on here, of course, so you can see the 160 times by, what did I say it was, times by 11. Alright, times by the choice, divided by 60, divided by the current hours per day, and we get our result. And what is it? We're currently traveling 4 miles per hour. And what I did just to sort of validate that this was working is I came in here to one of my existing notes. I had a look at how this was calculated. So 160 kilometers in here equals 5 days. And if we come back into here and we change this to 160, getting 4, that just stuffed up for me, didn't it? Let's have a look at the party configuration. No, hours per day, minutes per mile. Oh, of course, we're dealing with different method of travel, so that's not going to work. For here, we'll need to change this to a rhinoceros. 15 minutes per mile, and we were going fast on the other one, so it'll be 11. Alright, so let's just change this back to normal, and if we have a look at our transportation table, we can see normal. We'll change this one here to normal. We'll have a look. Alright, now note that Dataview doesn't recalculate when you just go from edit mode. Sometimes you do have to press back and forward. Alright, and now we can see we're now calculating at 5. So threw myself for a second there, but that's just a way of validating the data. Alright, just making sure that I have the calculations exactly the same. We're getting the same result, so fantastic. Alright, now, what did I just break there? I broke, the original code's not going to calculate. Alright, so let's just run through that quickly again, just so you guys can get the understanding. Alright, so equals, and the round here is not required, but the lookup factor is we're looking up a note. Within that note, we're looking up a variable. Now, then we need to look up something, and we're referencing here, and you see how we've got 3 square brackets? So then we're looking at the current party, which closes out 2 of those brackets, dot transportation, and then the closure of the 3rd bracket there. So square bracket, square bracket, square bracket. Alright, whenever you have an open bracket, we're closing. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you can see that then allows us to go, alright, let's look at the current party, let's look at the transportation variable, so that will be rhinoceros. So we're looking at transportation note, in movement, looking for rhinoceros, then looking at the current party.speed, which is normal, which means we're going to return the result from normal, which gives us a value. Okay, that's how you do a lookup table, and you can see, like, you know, the 3 brackets is something that we don't usually use. So you've got the 2, and then you've got the 3rd for the value that you're looking up. So using this, you should be able to replicate this through a couple of things, right? So it doesn't have to be a calculation on how far you're going to travel or how long it's going to take you to travel. You could, I'm sure you can come up with some reasons and ways to use this. But conceptually, this is what you're after, right? That's the ability to look up information from one note into another and return it. So there you go. All right. Obviously, what I would do with this now is I would come through. What I would do is I'd come through and basically replicate that into my notes. Okay, so you can see here I've got 2.8 days travel. What I have here up the top, this is an info box from the ITS theme, or the alternative ITS theme. All right, and you can see here that one of my lines in my table is this, so I would basically replicate, or replace this code with my new code. I would have a party configuration note that has the configuration of the party. I would have my travel method note, so I've got that in there as well. And then I would just basically go through and start updating all my locations to have this. And this is the output that you're looking for, is that you've got a location note that shows you how many days travel between there. And I can tell you right now, guys, that this is a fantastic thing to have at the table. If you're doing a really travel heavy campaign, like I'm running Horde of the Dragon Queen currently, which has got a lot of travel, this is proving to be really helpful, because previously I was like, oh yeah, you get on a horse and you go from this town to that town and we might have an encounter. Now I'm sort of in my head going, well, you're on the road for 5 days, right? Like, do you have supplies? Is your horse getting tired? Like, how many encounters are going to occur in there? I am finding this incredibly useful for a travel-heavy campaign. So, anyway, there we go. That is how to do a lookup table. Hopefully that has been useful for you. As I said, I will be uploading all of this code to the Patreon vault. So if you would like access to these notes, and you can see here there's all sorts of different tutorials in here for you to access. just come along and subscribe to the Patreon. I just think it's about the cost of a coffee a month, which is absolutely bugger all, and hopefully that will allow you to get moving a bit quicker. Especially handy for those of you who aren't as technical and just want to basically lift the code and use it in your own file. So no issues with that at all. Outside of that, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, please do like and subscribe. It helps obviously keep me focused on making new videos. I have just recently put out a Trello for the Patreon, so please do go along and vote on the Trello for the next videos you would like to see. I'm basically prioritizing them based on the votes that I'm receiving, and that will allow you guys to have a bit of input into what it is that you're interested in seeing. Case in point, everyone voted for this one. Thanks for that, guys, picking the most technical video out of the lot. First part off the game, but well done. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great night. I will speak to you on the socials. Enjoy.